a relatively calm and quiet day in the eastern part of the U.S. However, for Tuesday, severe weather risks loom large for the Mississippi and parts of the Ohio Valley, almost a repeat performance of what we saw late last week for that part of the country. Meanwhile, we have another major early spring/winter storm or late winter/spring storm that's got winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings all over the place in the northern plains and back into the Rockies and even out toward the West Coast. Surprise, surprise. All of that and more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, at Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. And they serve the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area, winter, spring, summer, or fall. This is spring, and that means topsoil, sand, and mulch. Make your house look like it's part of a botanical garden. 631-756-1125. The best prices in town. The website is... Yeah, exactly. Let me get your lovely little person on the screen. Whoops. Hang on. Whee! And here I am. I'm Joe Cioffi, by the way. We don't often say who we are because we're known to our audience. But for those of you who are new, I'm Joe Cioffi, and Joe Rayo is on the right. And we're the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight on this Monday, the 3rd of April. Those of you lurking in the background, also a big welcome. If you're new, subscribe to the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you could be part of this experience Monday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays we're usually off unless there's something going on. And this week, we anticipate that nothing will be going on so that we could take a bit of a break. Another big severe weather outbreak coming tomorrow, Joe, for the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. I heard something. Oh, your audio. Okay, hold on. Just a second. Let's see what's going on. Well, it says you got speakers. Can you testing? Talk to me.
Well,
there you go.
Can you hear?
I hear you now.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Technical difficulties.
It happens.
No, the batteries did not go dead, Christiapedia. I guess I just wasn't potted up.
No,
everybody.
The default speakers were switched. Why, I don't know, but they were.
Did you get an update from our friends at Microsoft or whatever?
No, not that I know of, but they're so, how sneaky they can be. They can sneak an update in the middle of the night and, you don't even know it. But
you never know it.
No, but go ahead. You were talking about Xenia, Ohio.
Well, yeah, in 1974, we had what was referred to as a super outbreak of tornadic activity.
What month was that in? Was that in April?
April.
It was in April.
April of 1974. And I was on the news tonight. They said that within the last 3 days, 90 tornadoes. I mean, is that possible? Well, I guess it is.
Yeah,
I mean, we had four of them.
It was a big number. It was a big number.
It's crazy. Crazy what's going on out there.
Well, I posed a question yesterday regarding the frequency, and Lou sent me, Lou Oricchio, I believe, sent me, hold on, where is it? No, I don't want to send a new message. I want to look at an old message. Oh, come on, stop. Hang on. So anyway,
Christiapedia says, by the way, Tuesdays, not Monday, but Tuesdays are usually Microsoft updates. And why do you have audio updates on anyway? Never do automatic updates. That's the number one
No,
rule.
I don't do automatic updates. I don't. They actually tell me when they're going to do them, and they ask me if I want to do them now or do them later. I always preset it. I don't think it was an update. I don't know. Something just got switched somehow. So Lou sent me a chart. Okay. Now this is from Mount Holly. So let me see if I can bring it up on the screen. Now I don't know that we can derive any of this, because one of the wonderful things about numbers is if you look at them long enough, you can make them pretty much say whatever it is you're looking for them to say. If you're on a big screen, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger without losing it completely. So I will attempt to enlarge this. No, it won't let me do that. Okay, so these are in Mount Holly's zone, Joe, from 1980 to 1999. 1980 to 1999, that's a 19-year period, all right? 162 tornadoes. And they go county by county. Bucks County in Pennsylvania had 12. Chester County in PA had 16. Berks County in PA had 10. Kent County in Delaware and Sussex County in Delaware each had 11. Most of the numbers in the Jersey counties were in the low to mid single digits. There's a couple of them, like Burlington County had 8, for example. That's the high mark. And also we have Gloucester County coming in right behind. Gloucester and Ocean counties both had 6. Now, so 162 from 1980 to 1999. From 2000 to 2018, in that entire stretch, Joe, 47 tornadoes. 47. So almost a little more than a quarter of what occurred in the prior 20 years. Now, this is 1 year short, but I guarantee you, in 2019, there weren't enough tornadoes to make that number. Made it a little bigger, but not anything that's going to change the ratio that much. But since 2019, so that's 44 years, and we're only starting the 4th year now. And I don't know whether this includes the ones from last Friday. I'm going to assume that it does. 69 tornadoes in the last 4 years.
Wow.
So you could look at this.
So you were right that New Jersey, or the New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania area, is now the new nation's capital for tornadic activity. Well, maybe not the nation's capital, but I mean, here in this part of the country, east of the Mississippi, my goodness, look what has been happening over the last few years.
You can look at this and say, okay, so you almost need to see year by year to figure this out. I mean, I don't know if we extended this to 1970, for example, what kind of numbers you would get. But you could look at this and just sort of, in a cursory way, just sort of say, okay, well, there was some kind of upcycle for tornadic activity from 1980 to 1999. And then there was some sort of down cycle from 2000 to 2018. Okay. Yeah. Now, right. We only have 19, 20, 21, 22, 4 years, and maybe we have Friday's events included in here. Maybe we don't. Now we've got 69. So are we at the beginning of another upcycle? Possibly. Is this something that stands out in terms of numbers? Well, 69 tornadoes in 3 years and 3 months to me sounds like, that's a pretty standout number. Considering what the long-term averages probably are. 11 in Bucks County, by the way, 11 tornadoes. Wow. And from 2000 to 2018 in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, 0. They had 12 in the prior upcycle. They've had 11 already. And I'm looking in Burlington in New Jersey. Burlington County has had 6. Between 1980 and 1999, they had 8. And in 2000 to 2018, they had all of 3 in that 18-year span. So it's kind of interesting to see these numbers, again, going back to what I said yesterday with respect to what are we dealing with here? Is this something, something old or something new, something borrowed or something blue? I don't know. But that's pretty impressive for the last 19, 20, 21, 22. So it's 4 full years and then one full month.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And I used to do the weather on radio, WOBM
You
in
did the
Ocean
weather
County.
on radio everywhere, for God's sake. It'd be easier to say. It'd be easier for you to say, I didn't do radio. I didn't do weather for this particular town.
Well,
you were everywhere.
Well, I say that only because from like 1978 through the 80s, I did like Philadelphia, I did Norristown, Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley, New Jersey. I did Central New Jersey, I did South Jersey, and in all of that time, I can just barely remember, scratching out of my head or whatever, I can barely remember maybe 2 or 3 cases where we had a frontal cloud or a microburst or a tornado occur, and that was big stuff back then. That was major news back in those days. Now it's just like, oh well, all right, another thunderstorm, another tornado. It's becoming more commonplace, no question about it, compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Right, and South Jersey's very flat. Yeah. As opposed to North Jersey, which is much more hilly, and in Northwest Jersey, it's on the mountainous side.
Mountainous side, yeah.
Ms. Fowlerite says, "What were their strengths?" I don't know. How many were EF3s, or were they all 0s to 2s? Well, did we not have a couple of EF3s last year?
Yes, we
did. So I'm sure some of them are EF3s in there. The other question that was also asked in a conversation that I had with Lewis was whether, and you wonder as you go back, the more years you go back, the more decades you go back, you wonder how many tornadoes fell through the cracks and were not reported.
Well, and now how is that possible?
Well, I'm just kind of thinking that if you go back, say prior to 1980 and 1970 and 60, a lot of these rural, these rural areas were,
I understand.
It hardly developed at all. I mean, you could drive miles and not see anything. So tornadoes can be very short-lived. They could only one of the tornadoes in New Jersey only lasted for about 700 yards. When I was reading one of the reports, so you wonder how many it's hard for them to fall into the cracks now with all because there aren't really any cracks with the Doppler radars and everything else. But you got to think that maybe back in the day, even before our day, that probably some happened that never really got reported or noticed.
Well, I can understand that. I can understand. Yeah, you're right. Back in especially in southern New Jersey, the population was much lower. The density was a lot lower than what we're seeing right now, what we're seeing today. And you're right. It's difficult for anything to escape now detection because of the much better quality radar, the Doppler radars that are occurring. All they have to do is just see even the merest threat or the merest suspicion of a hook echo, and boom, up goes the tornado warning for a specific spot. So things have changed, but there's no question also that activity has certainly increased over the last 20, 30, 40 years, or at least if not activity, intensity of these storms have increased, which some have said is due primarily to climate change or global warming.
All right. In the meantime, we do have this next weather system, which in some ways looks just like the one we had, but this one's going to track a little differently. And when the cold front from this next low that's going to be a blizzard in parts of the northern plains, and of course, as we said, is going to produce widespread severe weather tomorrow in the Mississippi and Ohio Valley, and then a little bit further to the east. This is not, I don't think it's going to be a severe weather producer for our area this time around, because the upper trough doesn't come in. Unlike the last system, the upper trough doesn't come anywhere close this time around.
Right. This doesn't look like the same, as you just said, the same type of potential outbreak. Although I must say that on the day 3 outlook, which I'm sure we'll take a look at in just a few moments, SPC certainly puts a broad area of general, then marginal, and then slight risk severe thunderstorm threats, not really too far away to our west. And the predictability is marginally low, I guess, on Thursday for them to mention that there might be some kind of an outbreak of severe weather, possibly. In fact, they do mention in the discussion that they are thinking along those lines, but there just isn't enough data or enough information available at hand to, push the threat more than, let's say, 15%. So it doesn't make it into the day 4, the possibility of severe weather. But certainly, Joe, if there isn't severe weather, there could be a few localized or isolated big boomers out there, and it's something to keep in the back of the mind. I was scratching my head over the fact that here in the Hudson Valley, neither Albany nor New York mention any convection on Thursday. All they say is a chance of showers in the morning, showers likely in the afternoon, temperatures by Thursday warming up big time, back to or above 70. It certainly sounds initially like what we saw on Saturday. Who knows, in between the morning shower threat and the afternoon shower threat, we might have a bit of sun to warm things up. But there's no mention of any thunderstorm in either the Albany or the New York NWS forecast for Thursday. So maybe they're waiting for a look at SPC tomorrow and see whether or not they have us at least in general thunderstorm covered. I think there'll be some thunder showers or thunderstorms around here and there on Thursday. But again, I agree with you. Probably not of the same potency, not as robust, we hope, as what we saw and what we were looking at when we were live on the air Saturday evening.
Yep. Well, here's the watches and warnings map for tonight. And we have that beautiful orange color across North and South Dakota and parts of northern Nebraska, which also in western Minnesota and even a county up there, up near the Canadian border, east of International Falls, where we've got blizzard warnings up. And winter storm warnings from northeastern Minnesota, south and west, much of Wyoming, except for the northwest quarter, is under a winter storm warning. A good chunk of the state of Utah into Nevada. We have a lot of high wind warnings up across southern California, eastern Arizona, southeastern Utah. The whole state of New Mexico seems to be under a high wind warning, as is much of West Texas. We have wind advisories surrounding that. Flood watches up for some of the counties in the southern half of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Up and down the East Coast, things are fine, but we might as well look at what the Storm Prediction Center has in store for tomorrow, Joe. And we have 2 areas of moderate risk. Just like we had the other day, they became 2 areas of high risk. I don't know if we'll go to a high risk tomorrow, but certainly I think the moderate is justified. Once again, eastern Iowa, northwestern Illinois in one area, and we have southwest Missouri, western Arkansas, and a small, tiny portion of southeastern Oklahoma in the second area of moderate risk. Now, compared to last week's risk zone from last Friday was maybe about 75 to 100 miles a little bit further east, because we had the extension that moderate was some of the moderate and high risk was in western Tennessee and northwestern Mississippi. This is a little bit further to the northwest. So a slight difference, but it makes a big difference if you're, obviously if you live in northwest Mississippi, it's better to be in a marginal risk than it is to be in a moderate risk. And it also speaks to the fact that this system, this system itself is tracking northwest of what the system last week did. and that is going to make the difference here in the eastern part of the United States. I'm just going to go. The tornado risk, by the way, is 15% right now in the moderate risk zones. I just want to go back to tonight, and then we'll jump to day 3. So tonight, we just have 2 areas of marginal risk, one in north central Texas and the other one from southeast Mississippi, southern Alabama, southern Georgia, northern Florida. Now we'll jump to day 3. And this is the period from Wednesday into Thursday morning. And the marginal risk cuts into Pennsylvania. It's west of I-81 and west of I-81 in New York State. And then you see how it kind of slopes down into West Virginia, cuts across eastern Tennessee, down to New Orleans. But then you have this fairly large area of slight risk from northern Louisiana northeastward through northwest Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, western half of Tennessee, much of Kentucky, much of central and eastern Illinois, all of Indiana, all of Ohio, all of the lower peninsula of Michigan. I wonder whether they may wind up adding a small area of enhanced risk before this is all said and done. But that's we've got time to figure that one out. And as you said,
well, they always seem to run. They always seem to run behind, or playing the catch-up game at SPC. And this is not a knock on the people at SPC, but they may want to play this initially conservative, get more data before they make a decision. The same reason why I think they're not calling for any thunderstorm activity at National Weather Service, New York or Albany for our area on Thursday, and because the risk for possibly mentioning thunderstorms on Thursday, in the opinion of SPC, is not high enough yet, not above 15%. But I think initially, for all of those places, Joe, they may upgrade it a bit, and I think by tomorrow we will see, at least in this part of the country, a chance of at least general thunderstorm activity, maybe even marginal activity. We'll see.
Debbie Carroll says, Josie, remember the one back in the 90s that went down Sunrise Highway and ended up in West Islip? Actually, Debbie, I was thinking about that this morning because I saw that funnel form. I happened to be at Robert Moses that day, and Robert Moses State Park, and I actually saw that funnel cloud, the funnel cloud that became that tornado. I watched it form. Those were the days when we didn't have Androids and iPhones, so I couldn't record it. But I saw it, and I said, looks like a tornado. And said to myself, well, that's kind of odd to see you hardly ever see tornadoes, even though they happen. You don't. Most people don't ever get to see one. Most weather people don't ever get to see one. But I actually saw that one start to develop, and then I found out when I got home that it went down Sunrise Highway and caused some damage. That was it did bring back some memories for sure. Here's the satellite loop, actually from earlier. Beautiful day over eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. I had to deal with gloom and doom today, Joe. Gloom and doom in my neck of the woods today. The clouds that you see over the southeast and into the southern mid-Atlantic states, they were just stubborn. And we had some, not a whole lot here in northeast Georgia. We had a little bit of rain this morning, but it really didn't amount to much. And there were some thunderstorms in southern Georgia. Some have just fired up into Alabama. You could see some lightning strikes, but they also look like they're waning now. And, of course, you see the rotation in the west, back in Idaho and eastern and western Oregon. Eastern Oregon. So that is the latest big upper low to plunge down into the western part of the United States that's about to get ejected eastward and then northeastward.
So just getting back for a moment, the Sunrise Highway event, so do you count that as your having seen or experienced a tornado, Joe?
That's probably the closest. Well, no, I should say this. I forgot what year it was in the early 90s, but I had to take my kids to school one morning. This was late in the spring. I think it was in the month of May. And I had to take it was late May. I'm going to say late May, early June. I had to drive my kids to school, and there were thunderstorms all over the place. I mean, there were flashes of lightning everywhere. And so I drove them to school. When I drove back, as I'm driving back up the street behind where I lived, I noticed that there were tree limbs and branches down, but they were on one side of the street. They were down in one direction. On the other side of the street, they were down in the opposite direction. And I said to myself, this looks like maybe you had a little tornado. Well, as it turned out, we not only had a tornado, but the tornado actually touched down on one of my neighbor's houses and ripped off. It took down this huge old oak tree and took off part of his roof and part of his, and that part of the attic was just gone. So wow. Had I been home, I would have seen it. So those are my two tornado experiences, and having one that where had I been home, which normally I would have seen it, and the other was one where I actually saw the funnel cloud develop.
See, the only thing I have ever experienced close to a tornado, Renata and I saw this, was not a tornado, but actually a significant water spout out over the Atlantic Ocean. We were on a cruise a few years ago, New York to Bermuda, and we turned and we looked, and I must also point out that it was basically a clear sky. It was just like a buildup of cloud cover off to one side of the ship, and off on the horizon, and we were able to see it. I think we had binoculars too. It was most definitely a water spout, and that's the closest that I've ever come to actually being able to say that I've seen or experienced a tornado. But I had to go all the way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to do it.
Yeah. And so for the obvious attention that they get, and they certainly should, the odds of you seeing one are pretty rare. Even if you live in tornado country, the odds of actually seeing one are fairly rare.
Well, that's why they chase them. That's why these people who are the fans, quote unquote, to experience the effect of a tornado, they get in their cars and say, I'm gonna see one of these. I'm gonna film one of these. You know, a little bit crazy, but you know, if you want to do something, if that's what you feel like doing, go ahead and do it.
Leon Probitsky felt like banging the tip jar, and he did. Thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight, Leon. Meanwhile, on the radar, it's actually a little busy on the radar across southern Wisconsin, across southern Michigan, Lake Erie, into western northern New York. We've got some showers. There's a bit of a backdoor cold front that is pushing southward there. I still think it won't make it here during the day on Tuesday. Probably will, though, make it through sometime Tuesday night. Meanwhile, we've got some showers in eastern North Carolina. We've got showers in parts of South Carolina, southeast Georgia, back to that cell I pointed out from the satellite with the lightning strikes in Alabama. And we're starting to see some snow break out in parts of Nebraska and Wyoming as the next storm takes hold. And you sort of could see the curvature of the radar echoes through Arizona, Utah, and on up into Idaho. That's the upper low. That's reflecting the upper low that's spinning around in western Oregon, eastern Oregon and western Idaho. That is beginning to move to the east. And as far as snow is concerned, this is from the National Weather Service digital weather base, and you can see that these are the amounts that are being forecasted. Some areas have already gotten some significant snows, especially as you go further west into the Rockies. So when you look at numbers in Utah, and if you look at numbers in Idaho, this is on top of what's already fallen. Up to 2 to 3 feet possible in parts of southeastern Wyoming, up to at least 12 to 18 inches across much of South Dakota and into North Dakota, where we've got the blizzard warnings up, and also into northwestern Minnesota. Minneapolis is only on the edge of this one, only forecast to get about an inch, but it looks like Duluth may wind up with about 7, and International Falls about 16. So, wow. Again, par for the course out here for the kind of winters that they've been having. So let's see what our models are telling us today. And I noticed a couple of interesting things, but I just want to go back in case you weren't here yesterday. I could still show you the difference between what happened on Saturday and why this one's different. That's the upper low that was in Nebraska Friday night, and you'll notice how it tracks straight to the east as a strong V-shaped trough that moved through late Saturday afternoon and evening. That really, that's the catalyst. This is how you get severe weather up in these parts in the spring in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. In the summertime, you can have the daytime heating and you get the buildups. You don't need necessarily something really powerful aloft, but in this time of year, if you get a good strong shortwave like this one was, and you get the right setup at the surface, which we had with the daytime, the temperature shooting up into the 70s and the dew points shooting up towards 60, that was certainly enough to trigger off those severe storms. And now that shortwave, of course, was very vigorous, moved out. Here comes the next one in much the same way that the other one started, which was as a strong cutoff moving out of the northwest into the Rockies. But this time around, you've got a fairly strong ridge in the eastern part of the United States. So that upper low is not coming east. It's lifting northeastward through the Dakotas and on up into Canada, north of Minnesota. So we're going to do it with just really a minimal amount of shortwave activity here that's going to come on through, and that's kind of why I'm leaning against the notion that we're going to see a repeat performance of what we saw late last week. And I'm, judging from the upper air, Joe, you can't really argue against that idea.
Right. Well, that ridge holding as firm as it possibly can, and all of the energy just shears off to the north and northwest of our area, unlike what we had on Saturday, where you had that upper level V, if you will. And not only the V was one thing, the progression. I mean, that thing was firing along really quick. And I think that also loaned itself to creating the havoc that we saw late Saturday and Saturday evening in and around our area.
No doubt. The rocket ship movement was the other factor here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did notice, see what the models did with this. Still going with the idea that our weather should be fine as we move through Friday and the Easter weekend. There's a little shortwave trough that drops down in eastern Canada that probably will support the idea of a dry and, certainly I think Friday and Saturday look to be on the coolish side. Maybe Sunday we'll see temperatures bounce up a little bit. Next week, there's an upper low that's supposed to form there off the North Carolina coast, and then some kind of trough that drops in from the north. And different models are handling this in different ways. The GFS just kind of wants to bring the northern feature down and merge it with the south and just take it out underneath us and just scream it away to the east. The European had a different idea with this for later next week, where, it sort of tried to give you the notion that maybe there would be some kind of nor'easter, a non-snow nor'easter, by the way. It would be a rain event. But you can see how the European actually drops that northern trough down along 90 degrees west and it cuts it off down there in South Carolina and it just sits it there on the coast. So I suspect that we're probably going to have some model differences for next week with regards to how that all comes about, if it comes about at all. But I just thought I'd throw it out there. This is the time of year where you could see cutoffs form, and when they do, if they get into the wrong spots, you get into these gloom and doom scenarios where you're at the very least you're cloudy and raw for days on end. So right now it's all in the land of speculation.
I think Wednesday, once that front that you mentioned, the backdoor front, finally pushes on through, and we have winds coming from an easterly or maybe an east-southeast direction. Temperatures probably will be no better than the mid-50s. Just a cloudy, you call it gloom and doom. I might call it simply indifferent. Just a cloudy, overcast sky, maybe a spit here and there of drizzle or light rain, or maybe some mist here and there. It'll be that kind of a day on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, when the warm front hopefully fires on to our north and puts us in a warmer airflow, temperatures will shoot back up to the lower 70s. And that'll be the question as to whether or not we'll be able to fashion any kind of a showery, thundery weather pattern for later in the day or evening. I agree with you, Joe, that the fact that the trough on Thursday, the shortwave, is going to get sheared to our north, not going to be the same kind of setup that we had here on Saturday. Yeah, there may be some thunder and lightning around, but it certainly should not be of the same potency as to what we went through last Saturday. Thank God for that.
Yeah, Wednesday's kind of tricky because if you're in, I just pulled up the digital forecast high temperatures. So if you want to just kind of use how these temperatures line up to try to find the warm front, it sort of looks like this. So it looks like it gets pinched off somewhere. I may have it actually drawn a little bit too far south in New Jersey, but I would say south of 195 and in Pennsylvania, particularly as you go into southeast and southern Pennsylvania and point southward, you may be south of the warm front. You'll probably see temperatures going into the 70s, and you'll see the 80s are not that far away. It's low and middle 80s across much of southern Maryland and Virginia. And then when we look at Thursday on this, there is a window where I think it could break out into some sun. Now, Thursday's kind of tricky because temperatures are not going to go anywhere. So it's quite possible that we could see temperatures well into the 70s to near 80, say, in Philadelphia, Trenton, and points south and west. Right now, you would kind of figure you'd have a more limited amount of time for sun, say, around New York City. But, they're pushing numbers up to 74, 75 around New York City and up near Poughkeepsie. So I wouldn't be shocked to see 70s push up all the way into southern New England. Right along the immediate coast, it's going to depend on your wind direction, because if you've got any kind of wind that's coming in off the water, if you're in central and eastern Long Island, if you're in southeastern New England, if you're along the New Jersey shore, you're going to have to deal with the wind off the water at some point during the day on Thursday. And is this enough to trigger off maybe a thunderstorm or two? I would say yes. Is it, are the dynamics there for severe weather? I'm going to, again, for this Thursday, I'm going to lean against it.
Right. We're not saying that there's not going to be any thunderstorm activity on Thursday. In fact, in all likelihood, there will be. What we're saying is that the kind of thunderstorms we're going to be seeing on Thursday, most likely in the afternoon or an evening, are going to be the, if there is such a thing, regular thunderstorms, the kind that just make maybe some noise and drop a brief, heavy bit of rain, but nothing like what we saw on Saturday afternoon and evening, where we ended up with, damaging winds to over 60 miles an hour, tornadic activity in a few places, hail. Didn't see much. I didn't hear very many reports of hail.
No, neither did
Saturday.
Neither did I.
But we'll have some rumbles on Thursday, but I agree with you. I don't think it'll be anything really to write home about or anything that is going to make the national headlines.
Right. And, of course, my buddy Phil Bazanka, who just took his RV from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, where I spent time with him and his lovely wife, Veronica, down to Fort Pierce along the east coast of Florida. So doesn't have any worries about any of this in the coming days. He just can enjoy the hot weather in Florida and be on the beach, lucky him. But here we go. This is our storm. You see it coming out of Colorado. And all that blue in the Dakotas, and all those lovely isobars, tight, very, very tight. So no wonder they've got blizzard warnings up. That low runs up into northwest Wisconsin. The front stalls out somewhere across New Jersey on Wednesday. We see some showers Wednesday night into early Thursday, then a break. And then the cold front with some showers and maybe a rumble or two of thunder. The GFS kind of hints that there could be something like that. And then after that goes by, the southern part of that front's going to stall in the southeast. And you see rain there in Virginia into southern New Jersey late Friday. But then it all starts to sink south and east as a high builds in. A nice strong high there up near Sault Ste. Marie on Saturday. Therefore, on the coolish side, but dry for Saturday. And for Easter Sunday, it looks like a really nice day with the high to the north and a low well off the Carolinas and going out to the east, or at least sitting out there between the Carolinas and Bermuda. And again, what happens with that low and then how the upper air behaves. The GFS says it just sort of sits out there for a couple of days and then gets kicked away, in which case it doesn't look like we're going to have much of any rain for next week, if that's right. The European has other ideas, but we'll see about that when we get there.
I'm wondering what Latex Dreams means on the chat board. He says Rayo just, and he has a B in front of the word kills. Maybe the B wasn't supposed to be there, but says Rayo just kills the show.
Well, that could be a positive. That's probably a positive. You're killing it, Joe. You're killing it. You got to get with the lingo. You got to get with the. You got to get the acronym. You got to get with the acronyms.
I still remember when somebody on Facebook said Joe Rayo's the bomb, and I thought that was. I said to my daughter, I said, "You see that? Look at the disrespect. People treat me with, or sometimes they get." I said, "Dad,
that's a good thing.
That's supposed to be. That's a good thing, Dad." Or the time when somebody said Joe Rayo's the GOAT. That's
right. Greatest of all time.
Yeah. And again, I thought that was, I don't know. I'm living in the wrong century, ladies and gentlemen. Who's got Briller Jeopardy tonight? I think you have, right?
I do. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Hold on just a second. I'm just reading. We have.
I'm reading. I'm reading it too.
We have an idiot on the chat board. Anyway, okay. So yes, I have Briller Jeopardy. So just hang on.
Nick M says Rayo still says 23 is good too.
Yes, exactly. How about groovy, Joe? Do you still say groovy?
Groovy. I'll tell you, if they ever brought the Patty Duke show back, that was one word that was used like almost every other show.
Oh, yes.
Groovy, Patty, groovy.
You know what? I'm drawing a blank. Now this is I'm getting memory issues because this is something that I should know right off the bat. What's the opening line to the song for the Patty Duke show? Meet Kathy, who's lived.
Meet Kathy, who's lived most
everywhere.
everywhere.
No, I got it. From Zanzibar to Barclay Square. But Patty's only seen the sights a girl can see from Brooklyn Heights. What a crazy pair. They're cousins.
Identical
For
cousins.
some reasons, I mean, that was one I always remembered, and for some reason I just suddenly drew a blank. That's not good. If I can't remember the Patty Duke song, then I have memory issues. Okay, speaking of issues, okay, finally. I love when I have a tough time opening Messenger. It's always when I need it. So tonight on Briller Jeopardy.
And Stick Floyd says, who the hell is Patty Duke?
Okay.
That's it. We're gone.
Right. If you have to ask, Stink Floyd, if you have to ask, you need to Google it. Actually, I was friends with one of her cousins, believe it or not Kathy. And she was also distantly related cousin to Hunts Hall.
Oh, from the Dead End Kids?
Dead End Kids, yeah.
Yeah.
He did a lot of Broadway work, and he actually did a lot of writing. He wrote a lot of plays and short stories, and really very accomplished in his career. All right, so here we go. Scott Briller always sending Briller Jeopardy. He's taking care of his mom, and we always send our best hopes and energy to Mother Briller. Tonight we are going to be talking about the extremes for April in New York City. Okay, the month of April. And while you're everybody on the chat board ready to participate in these questions, we've got 62 likes. We always like to go to 100 likes. So if you are watching and you like the show, or even if you don't like it, maybe you like it a little bit, like it enough to hit the like button and make us happy, okay? So on that note, what was the high... This was such a giveaway for me. If you'd have given it to me, if I was sitting on the other end of this question, I would get this right away. The highest temperature in April in New York City.
Can I lead off here?
Oh, by all means, please do.
Was it 96 on April 18th, 1976?
It was 96, as Keith James II has put it up, and Howard A. has put it up. But... Joseph, it was not April 18th, 1976. Well, it was April 18th, 1976, but it also happened on April 17th of 2002.
Right. Like certs. Two
mints in one.
2 mints in one.
Yes. What was the lowest temperature ever recorded in New York City in the month of April? The lowest, I'm sorry, hold on. Wait. Yeah, the lowest temperature ever recorded in the month of April.
It would have to be, oh God. How about, I'll say 22.
22, says Joe Rayo. But Paul Roman has hit it off, and so has Bobby Livingworth and Howard A. all hitting it, Joe. It's a dozen. 12.
Well,
12.
Wow.
Now, what was the coldest daytime max? And you should get this. You know this.
30 degrees the day after the 82 blizzard.
April 7th, 1982.
82, right.
30 degrees was the daytime high, not minus 10, Rosemary Osborne.
And I tell people, we talk about anomalies and we talk about that April blizzard. I say, the thing that blows me away is not that New York City picked up almost 10 inches of snow the first week of April in 1982. The thing that blew me away was how cold it got right after that storm, and was cold for many, many days afterwards. And you're right, 30 degrees. That was the best we were able to do for a high temperature on April 7th in spite of bright sunshine. And it stayed cold for much of that week.
It did. And the snow still disappeared.
It took time, but it did disappear, yes.
And the last question tonight, we have 19 likes to go to 100, folks. The last question tonight is, what was the greatest amount of snow to fall for the entire month of April?
Oh. Ooh.
The greatest amount.
I'll say I know the numbers.
Says Rosemary Osborne.
No, that's no.
Leon
13.5.
13.5 is the correct answer, but we should give kudos to Leon Probitsky, Johnny Quest, 14 and 14.5 respectively to get close, and Maggie P got close too with 12. Richard Arden, I'll give it to you. You said 15, so that's within an inch and a half, but not according to Price is Right rules. And Patrick Darcy said 12, so he came in just under. So
here's a nifty little book here. It's called an Almanac for New York City. It's not the Farmer's Almanac. It's an almanac about New York City events. And they have somebody who does the weather for them. And I remember thumbing through this, and I read about this. Here it is. Let's see, April. We're into April, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Here we go. April 25th, 1875. So in New York City's latest measurable snowfall, more than just a trace, when 3 inches of snow fell as late as April the 25th in 1875, the New York Times called it, quote, a touch of winter in the heart of spring. It was also the snowiest April on record, April of 1875, with 13.5 inches. That's why 13.5 stuck in my head, because I read it in this itty bitty book.
Yes. Stink Floyd asks, was Patty Duke alive? Well, she was.
She
Until she
was.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, she's no longer with us.
And you know who she married? It was kind of weird to think about this.
Oh,
If you were a
John
big
Aston.
fan, if you watched television in the 1960s, both were on television in major or feature shows on that network. Patty Duke in the Patty Duke Show, playing a teenager, and somebody who you would feel would be as far away from that as possible. John Aston playing the role of Mr. Adams on the Addams Family, who was married to Morticia,
Yes,
right?
Carolyn Jones.
Carolyn Jones. Yeah, you wouldn't think that John Aston would eventually marry Patty Duke.
Well,
they did.
to be fair, we know some of these actors sometimes by the outrageous characters that they've played on certain shows, and they do certain shows for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that they do like to eat like everybody else.
Yes.
But John Aston was also a director. He also, I don't know if he's still I think he was teaching in I think a theater at UCLA, and he may still be, or at least up until maybe a few years ago, he was teaching. I know he's still alive, but we see them by these outrageous characters and think that's that's who they are in real life, and they're not.
And who else did John Aston play? Another ABC show. John Aston made an appearance as a weird character.
Let's see. I remember he did a couple of Murder, She Wrote, but that was a CBS show
Who on the chat board? Who on the chat board can answer that? Who did John Aston play?
In another ABC show after the Addams Family?
In another ABC show.
After the Addams Family. Oh, God.
I'll give you a hint. A lot of question marks.
Oh, the Riddler.
The Riddler.
Well, he Frank Gorshin was the original Riddler. And then when Frank Gorshin was doing Broadway, and then it was sort of like, I don't want to do this character anymore. John Aston played the Riddler, I think, in one sequence of episodes.
Only once did he play the Riddler, but he was the Riddler.
So while we're waiting for 14 likes to get us to 100, I want to show you something. Okay. I got a FedEx today and got a plastic bag. And inside the plastic, it's bubble wrapped too, so I'll get to play with it after the show.
There it is.
Inside the plastic,
You've been waiting for this.
Plastic bag is another bag. And inside this other bag, which says warranty replacement not for resale. And inside this is my dongle.
There it is, folks.
This is the dongle that I've been talking about. Now, I'm thinking, because I've noticed that now that I actually know how to work this darn microphone, because when I had it before, it wasn't working right, but then I finally figured it out, that I'm just going to hold on to this dongle for now and stay on the microphone until such time as the microphone begins to give us some trouble, and then I will switch back to the headset. Well, I'm using the headset, but so that I can hear Joe Rayo, and that this way we don't get feedback. But I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hold on to my dongle.
This almost looks like a dongle too.
That's not a dongle.
I know it's a flash drive.
This is smaller than a flash drive. You cannot do not mix flash drives with dongles. Who came up with that name? That's the thing that boggles my mind. Who said that? Who looked at that and said, "You know what? That's a dongle."
You know, it almost sounds like a villain from the old Batman show. I could just see like police, like Chief O'Hara saying to the commissioner, shouldn't be gotta. I'll bet everything that it was that dongle.
Yes.
And then and then the commissioner would look there with that stoic face and say, "There's only one man who could take on that devious villain." And he walks over to the hotline, picks it up,
Boop,
calls
boop.
Alfred. He said, I'll get him, sir.
Yes, Alfred Napier.
And then he said, "Yes, Commissioner. You won't believe it, Batman. The dongle is back. We're on our way." And you see Burt Ward as Dick Grayson saying, "Damn it! Holy dongle!"
Jason Schaefer, that dongle, by the way, goes. This is a wireless headset and microphone, so you plug the dongle into your computer so that because my laptop's from 2018 is when I bought it, so it doesn't have it has some Bluetooth. It doesn't have full Bluetooth capability, so the dongle makes the Bluetooth work. And I broke my dongle when I was down in Florida, which is why we didn't have any shows for 3 days.
And who would be a good actor to play the dongle in Batman? I would say Roddy McDowall, but he already played
Right,
Bookworm.
I was thinking somebody tall and lean, and I would have said Art Carney when he was lean.
But he was the Archer.
But he was the Archer, and Roddy McDowall was Bookworm, right? And Malachi, what's that last name? Was it Malachi Drone? Played Falseface.
Wait a minute. Fred Gwynn. There you go.
Fred
Gwynn would make a good dongle. Fred Gwynn would make a good dongle.
Keith James saying, do you notice on Joe Cioffi, do you notice on bad weather days the events, the numbers spike upward on YouTube? Oh, yeah, of course. No, absolutely. The numbers do spike up on YouTube. I saw an interview with a TV weatherman who came out and said bad weather equals ratings. Yeah, well, it kind of does, Keith. Nobody really cares so much when it's mostly sunny for days on end. But when weather acts up, yeah, that's people watch. I don't think. I certainly didn't drive my TV career on the idea that I'm going to make it sound like, there's going to be a storm. Malachi Throne. Thank you, Rich. I couldn't think of it. I rhymed it, though. I said Malachi Drone. It's Malachi Throne. Now, you know what, Joe? Cesar Romero, Cesar, of all the actors and all the villains that showed up on Batman, Cesar Romero, to me, was the best, was the absolute best.
My son.
Fat Man and Boy Blunder. What is wrong with this sentence? He who laughs last laughs good. Oh, that's great, though. Can you see the mustache under the white makeup?
No, I can't.
No, he was.
All right.
Cesar Romero was. I loved him. He was just great. It was just great.
Now you would think for my getting this out for this show, you could get a lousy six more likes to get us to 100. I mean, come on.
Well, it was enough to get Paul Roman to hit the tip jar, bang the tip jar. Thank you, Paul, but don't bang it holding your dongle, okay? And you shouldn't dangle your dongle either. 95.
Dear me.
95.
96. Come on.
Just get to 100 so we can turn the show off, for God's sake. I got things to do.
Come on.
No other no.
Should we leave a cliffhanger?
I'm surprised the executive producer didn't yell down, "Will you stop that and just put an end to all this?"
I'm going to have him near me now.
That's great.
I mean, I tucked this away somewhere, and I said, "Oh, I got to get this out since we're talking about Batman." 97.
No, 96.
Come on.
Well, somebody unliked.
Well, it's 97
It's
on
not-
here.
You know what?
to
I'm
me.
not going to stick around for another 3. They'll come after. They'll watch it on the replay and hit the like button. All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 Eastern Time. We're going to see a lot of severe weather tomorrow, so we'll have tornadohq.com up on the screen as well. So thanks for the super chat hits, and be safe. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Same bat time.
Same bat channel.
channel.